Hey, everybody, it's Brian, and welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. How about this? Aren't we all thinking that we're selling a nice-to-have versus a must-have? No, we all know it's a must-have. Our job is to create that feeling in our customers, create that sense of urgency, have them understand what they're going to get out of it. And that's why I invited Lisa Welch from Xactly. She runs the field enterprise group there, and she's going to share her story about how she grew into a leadership role, what she likes about it, how she helps her reps. And then we're going to get into her deals and what they're up against, because I think this case is very complex, meaning you got lots of stakeholders, a new market, essentially with an old problem that's getting more and more complicated. And how do you make it a must-have? So we're going to go through that, and I think you're going to get a lot out of this. Even if you're a rep or even if you're a manager, you're going to get to see both sides. And we're going to talk about what she likes in reps, how she has accepted all different kinds of people from different background skill sets. Instead of trying to make everybody look the same, get the best of the best and help them close deals. I think her attitude and her viewpoint is very inspirational and interesting, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. For those of you who aren't making the number that you'd like, aren't getting the leads that you want, I've got two courses for you. I got Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting, and Closing the Complex Sale. Now, people are getting about 100 to 300 times return on their investment. So it's not a matter of cost. It's a matter of you needing it. Are you making the kind of money that you want? Or you believing that there's a better way, a smarter way, a different way, having somebody else show you what's working today. They both have about 20 hours of office hours of many different use cases, as well as you get one-on-ones with me. So you're not alone. It's both a community, a course, and coaching. So you get one-on-ones, you get a community through office hours, and you get the course material, and you get access to it for a year. I put the answers to the frequently asked questions in the show notes, which you can get hit by just tapping on the artwork and scrolling down. Also, please connect up with me on LinkedIn and make sure you're checking out our partners. Co-Video. Video is the way to connect and break through with your prospects and your customers. They don't want to see your words. They know it's all canned and templated. They want to hear your voice and see your smiling face. And why not do that? They got a Chrome plugin, super simple to do. The other thing is you don't want people spending a lot of time digging up research and information. Discoverorg.com does that for you. People are hiring these information concierge, these people who are just cleaning up the CRM constantly, instead of having 200 people outsource doing it for you at discoverorg.com. So make sure you're checking out that. Also, Chris Orlob put out another great blog post at discoverorg.com about getting your whole sales team aligned on messaging, call structure, and questioning. Great blog post. Make sure you're checking that out. Here's Lisa. Hey, Lisa, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
I am I hate to say this, 25 plus year sales executive. I have basically worked in some of the largest companies in the world, including Oracle and Salesforce, and I've worked for startups as well. And I've also had some sort of in-between companies, what I would call, mid-market, somewhere between startups and the largest organizations in the world. And I've been an individual contributor, very successfully selling into the enterprise mostly. And have been leading sales teams for about the past 15, 20 years.
Excellent. And today, are you a people manager or are you an individual contributor?
I am a people manager. I am managing the enterprise sales team for Xactly.
Is that like herding cats, or is it just fun every day?
I think it's always herding cats, So there's a bit of cat herding that goes along. My goal is to try and train the cats to follow directions properly and, make it a little bit easier for everybody to get to revenue.
That's it. Well, you know what they're motivated by, so you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
You know what their mouse food is.
Indeed.
Have you gone back and forth from being a contributor to a manager, or?
No, I actually had, I would call it kind of a meteoric rise at Oracle back in the day. This was I'm dating myself, but sort of pre-Y2K. And I went from a territory manager to a global account manager to a regional manager to an AVP in about a 4-year time period. And ever since I was asked to take on a management role, I've stayed in management the whole time, sales management.
And how have you found it? Was it a big adjustment? Or?
It wasn't a big adjustment. I mean, I think honestly, part of the reason why I was tapped back in the day at Oracle to lead the team, I was actually a member of this, of the sales team, and I was tapped by one of the senior vice presidents because there was a hole in the leadership role for the regional manager, which was a local sort of New York position. And he tapped me on the shoulder to step into the role because he said, look, your team obviously respects you. You've been very successful selling, so you know what you're doing, and you have natural leadership qualities. So, people listen to you, you've demonstrated success, and we think you'd make a great manager. And I said, sure, I'll try it. And that's where I've stayed.
Excellent. And what do you like about it versus being a rep?
So I will tell you, there are a couple of legitimate stories in my life where I have had spouses come up to me and tell me, you have changed our lives for the positive. You've really made my husband, in this particular case, so happy and so much more successful than he ever thought he could be. And you really just, you've changed our lives. And that was the most rewarding interaction I've ever had. And it also summarizes why I like to lead sales teams and what the potential, what the best outcome can possibly be.
That is rewarding, isn't it? I mean, that's certainly as a leader or a manager to get that kind of reaction as opposed to the alternative.
Yeah, well, I've had those too, but that's just part of the job.
And how did you do that? Can you maybe either that story or another one? Don't need names or anything, but
sure. So how did I change somebody's life?
Yeah, I'm sure you took them from probably a B player to an A player, or helped them with a huge deal, or
a little of both. So I this was a bit of a struggling performer, and the interesting thing is that I look at how I assess the team based on two axes, if you will. It's what I call will and skill. So the skill is generally something that I can teach, right? If somebody is intelligent, if they're smart, they can learn something, they can pick something up through training, through sales enablement, etc. Will, however, is not teachable. So either somebody has the will to take feedback, to take coaching, to improve, to get better, or they don't. In this particular case, both of those qualities were there. The struggle was a challenge early on, but I basically gave this individual some very specific feedback and coaching and, worked through every deal with him along the way, and taught him skills that nobody had ever taught him before. Nobody before me necessarily even approached selling the way that I did. And I taught him a number of things, and he followed direction beautifully. And over time, after my coaching produced the results that I told him they would produce, because I've been doing this long enough, and he saw that, he kind of made those coaching moments his own. He embodied them and used them, on an ongoing basis, and turned around, poor performance into being a top performer.
Now, when you said will, I kind of interpreted it a little bit different. You focused on the coaching side of it, the wanting feedback, the taking feedback, the openness. I was thinking of it more as the drive, the motivation, the desire.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. Okay. And here's the reason why I think will also in my case, from an assessment anyway, it leans more towards the coachability, the feedback, etc. Is because sometimes, and I've dealt with this as well. I've had an A player who had definitely had the drive and the motivation, and coin operated and everything that you want a key salesperson to have. He did not have will when it came to taking feedback, listening to direction, potentially shifting or changing things or doing things differently, listening, and he ended up being a cancer to my organization. And that, even though he made his numbers, yeah. he was not a source of energy for me or the rest of the team. And that's a really bad situation.
And that happens quite a bit because especially the best salespeople tend to be kind of, lone wolf is kind of a overused term, but people who have a very specific view of how the world works, it works for them, but they tend not to fit well with the other campers.
Well, and again, that's a management skill set because I've had those as well. I mean, I had one of the best sales professionals I have ever encountered in my life who was a complete lone wolf. And, I went into a couple of meetings with him. They were difficult meetings. And I did some things, in one particular instance, we weren't getting anywhere in this particular discussion. And I basically said, let's pack up. We're out of here. Sorry, but this is not good for us. So I said, pack up your stuff. We're leaving. The customer at the time was agape and couldn't believe that we left. And my rep, who is a lone wolf rock star, was absolutely just euphoric because he said, I have always wanted to do that, and I never have. And that was the best thing ever. And I said, well, okay, great. So the point of the story is you can still teach lone wolves tricks. And the flip side of that is I was never, as a manager, I was never heavy-handed with him. I trusted him. I let him go. I knew what he was going to do. I knew that he would deliver. And so while his will was a little, could be contentious at times, I knew when to press and when to not.
Yeah.
And so, and I told him too when we left the meeting, I said, listen, you're going to get this deal, but it's not going to be this quarter. And sure enough, they came back and he got the deal the following quarter.
Yeah, that's a great story. And it sounds like you're open-minded to very different types of people and personalities as opposed to kind of the soldier mentality of everybody.
Yeah, you have to be. Yeah, you absolutely have to be. I liken this to, I always tell anybody, who I'm interviewing with, or if I'm, discussing what my style is or what I look for in a team, my whole thing is I don't want a bench of Stepford wives. That doesn't help anybody. I've had, highly intellectual engineering types coupled with, pure relationship, folks coupled with people in between, et cetera. And it's really a great way to run an organization because everybody feeds off of everybody else, different skill sets, different styles, et cetera. And it keeps it interesting.
And it's also refreshing because most of the time, certainly when I was a rep, I think it's almost even a cop-out that the manager wants everybody like them.
Correct.
And I remember interviewing with a guy and go, tell me your ideal candidate. And he described himself.
So there's one thing I would tell you. I would never describe myself when it came to the ideal candidate on my team. One of me is plenty.
And that's it. And it was a bare bones startup. And it's like, well, how many people do you need in Manhattan?
Yeah, exactly.
And that brings it up. Being a New Yorker, I'm sure you've managed people all over the country. Is that true?
Absolutely. My team is all over the country now.
So that in and of itself introduces a lot of diversity and culture and style.
Absolutely.
And it requires you to adapt when you visit.
Yes.
Atlanta is very different than Manhattan, which is different than Silicon Valley. and the words per minute and the topics and the amount of time spent on rapport.
Yep.
Was that much of an adaptive change for you when you had to kind of go across country?
It was. I mean, I'm not, I had to obviously adjust communication style in the South. Some of the larger areas, the city, like Chicago's and the Dallases and, the Silicon Valley, et cetera, they're a little more city oriented, but for the most part, I've learned, when to sort of put the gas on and when to be what I would consider more of a supporting cast member.
Yeah.
If I need to take the lead or be the bad guy, if you will, or the bad cop, I can. But I also spend a lot of time with my rep or who's ever in the room. It could be a team of people, really understanding what my role needs to be, and I have to adapt accordingly.
Let's go on to the skill side. How do you define an A player for you?
Well, I mean, it's you got to have will and skill. From a skill side, you can't argue with performance, so that is a critical factor. Somebody who consistently makes or exceeds their number. I think it's important, especially when I interview people. I expect, a behavioral and or a situational discussion. So I don't like to talk theoretical. I like to say I'd like to understand from somebody, tell me a specific, about a specific deal, the largest one you won, what level you were at. I want name, ranks, and serial numbers so I can assess the way somebody tells me a story, how, first of all, how accurate it is because you have details, and then, how they've gone about navigating a complex environment, multiple people, C-levels, negotiations, evaluation cycles, et cetera. And that to me gives me a really good feel for somebody's skill, and a lot of it is also, I think, communication can never be underestimated. I think communication is critical, and the way somebody communicates orally and then written in a written fashion is, to me, it's a leading indicator around skill or intelligence.
That brings up a great point because, like, when I interviewed people at big companies, a lot of things happen not because of the person. Certainly if you work at one of the big brands, yeah, you might just luck into a deal.
Yep.
Right time, right place. And what you find out is 80% of the real work took place before that person got the account. Mm-hmm. Is that why you go through the whole life cycle of the deal, or?
Yeah, that's one reason. Listen, I had that, recently with, in a couple of instances where, yeah, for whatever reason, change in, personnel, somebody leaves the company and, deals get handed to somebody basically because you need to pick up, management of the opportunity. And, as I participate and, assess throughout the sales cycle, it becomes clear to me that somebody who inherited a deal isn't necessarily the person who's going to be able to bring it to closure. You know what I mean? Or they can, but, it's because, to your point, 80% of it is already wired and, they've got to go through the steps of, a procurement process or whatever.
Yeah. And that's it. You're really looking for that consistency, somebody who can take greenfield territory and turn it into an A-level territory, and somebody who can take an existing account and make it an enterprise account.
Correct.
And, even though those two things may be somewhat different skills, you need both.
Absolutely.
And that idea of being it repeatable as opposed to simply the elephant hunter, the person who shows up on December 31st with the $10 million deal. That's nice.
Yeah.
Right? But March 31st comes around too.
Well, and like I always say, you have the elephant hunting, but I need zebras and gazelles in between to keep the lights on.
Yes. And keep us all alive and eating.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you've been at Xactly for 3 months now, so you're just getting your feet underneath you. What do you see as the major challenges for you to grow that?
I think just what I find is that, first of all, I think what's important about Xactly is, and one of the reasons why I joined is because the offering to the marketplace, this whole notion of evolving from traditional incentive compensation management, or ICM, into this whole platform of sales performance management was one of the things that attracted me to join the company. So we are, no longer, and the space is not necessarily any longer focused just on doing the calculations around calculating commissions, but it's based on planning, the planning aspect of how you optimize the performance of your sales team. And that's based on how you define territories, how you set quotas, how you actually look into total addressable market and make sure that your team is properly assigned, a patch that they can survive in or thrive in. So that's the front end of it. Then the middle piece is, all right, then when that's done, you can calculate your commissions and pay people properly and have transparency there so everybody knows what they're going to get paid. It's not a mystery. And then on the back end, it's the analytics around, okay, how did everybody perform? Where might they need coaching? Sales enablement, training, et cetera. But there's also a very interesting thing that we've gone into, which is this whole notion of, and it's really not a new notion, but it's machine learning or, AI. I know those are buzzwords, but we actually just went through a really incredible exercise where, we have 13, almost 14 years of historical, sales performance data, right? Based on the fact that we've been around for 13 years and we've paid millions and millions of salespeople over years. And we have all that data based on, industry, et cetera. It's obviously anonymized and aggregated, obviously. But what we were able to do recently was look at an attrition model, which helps a sales organization see where there might be a risk of a rep defecting or leaving. And so we looked at this information and it was astounding. There were two folks who came up on the scatter chart, basically with a high propensity to leave. And both of them did. Wow. So it was a really eye-opening experience for us. So that's sort of that's where this whole sales performance management area is going. And it's very exciting because right now, Xactly is the only company out there in this space that can give you this information, this insight, et cetera. So that's a very long-winded way and a little bit of a commercial to answer your original question, which was, what are the challenges? And I think for us as a company, having the reps educated and comfortable with, getting their brain around what this entire sales performance management platform means to a company is I would say probably the most short-term challenge, we're having, and we're getting there. And I say part of that because some of this solution has been created through acquisitions, so it's new. Our bread and butter and our core business is ICM. It's doing the calculations, creating the comp plans, paying people, et cetera, et cetera.
So it sounds to me like a hugely complex sale in the sense that, who cares about this within an organization?
Yeah.
You certainly have the CFO, you have the CRO, the CEO, but who owns this problem?
Well, that's a great question, and it depends. So you answered the question. It's a problem to the top of the organization. I mean, it generally spans, when you look at the entire organization, finance, sales operations, sales in and of itself. Those are probably and a lot of companies have compensation management teams. So those are the 3 or 4 key areas that we have to touch when a company is interested in a sales performance management platform.
And certainly, I remember when I got into this, almost every company had its, you had a base salary, a commission rate, and then a bonus rate. And it sure has gotten a little bit more complicated, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than that. And if you think about it, that's the reason why, we as a company are still astounded at how many companies out there are doing all of this through spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And it's rife with errors. It's taxing to everybody. The worst part is it is mysterious to salespeople. The sort of cardinal sin number one is, especially in these complex deals with complex compensation plans, the worst thing you can do is not have a rep understand what they're going to get paid when they close a deal.
Yeah.
And we beautifully make that as transparent as possible to the sales reps, at least down to that level, virtually on a daily basis.
Yeah. I was at a startup and got acquired by a huge company. And the last year there, I had no idea how I got paid.
Yeah. Listen, at one of my last companies, I had no idea how I got paid. I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. And it was very frustrating. I mean, I was delighted that I got a check, because I knew I was going to get a commission check, but yeah. I had no idea how we got there. And it's very frustrating. It's also a little demotivating, to salespeople. What we do is hard, and, we work really hard, and it's complex, and you want to know exactly how you're going to get paid if you close something, which is what you're expected to do.
And that's it. And when you're designing the sales model, I was at another startup that kind of had too many people involved. And after 2 quarters, they were like, we can't keep this sales model. It's costing too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everybody's getting compensated on some deal somehow, some way. You had pre-sales people, and especially today with the division of labor gone mad.
Yep.
It all makes sense in the whiteboard, but then when you try and actually pay people, it's like, uh-oh.
Well, that's exactly what we solve, which is terrific, right? Because, you hit the nail on the head. You've got overlays and, potentially channel partners and a channel team and a direct team and an SC organization and on and on and on. And, what we're able to do is basically shine a light on who you're paying, what you're paying them, when they're getting paid, in a very transparent environment. And the nice thing, the reason why this is so strategic to organizations is because it informs all the way up to the CFO what this incredibly expensive, salary and commissions bucket actually looks like. So it's not a mystery anymore. And these companies are able to plan their goals and strategically align their organization around common goals that everybody shares and what it's going to cost the company based on the compensation model.
So when you're hiring enterprise reps to sell something that's it's kind of new, it's very complex, multiple players, high value, what do you look for?
I look for people that have actually run complex sales organizations in the past. I look for people that do understand what it means to prosecute a deal in an enterprise account. They have experience with complexity. They have experience with, excruciating procurement processes. People who have been there and done that, because it's difficult. If you haven't had experience in those environments, it's very difficult to explain to somebody what this looks like and kind of what the pain is going to be and how complex it is and what you need to do, et cetera.
And how do you coach them on making it a must-have versus a nice-to-have? Because I can see a product like this getting attention, getting interest, but dying on the vine or just sitting on the things that we'd like to do list instead of the things we have to do.
You mean from a sales
strategy standpoint?
You mean to make it a must-have for the companies that we're selling to?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a $64,000 question. Most of the way that we go about making it a must-have is to quantify through. We have a pretty sophisticated ROI model. So these reps actually have to spend some time quantifying what the return on investment is, what the pain areas are, and how those challenges are quantified from a dollar and an efficiency standpoint. And that's the easiest way, is because if it's quantifiable, you can illustrate to a CFO. Or I think we just did an ROI analysis for a deal that we're currently working. It's a pretty large deal. It's about $600,000 in license and another few $100,000 in implementation. And I think the payback, based on when we put in the numbers, was like 1.6 months. I mean, it was extraordinary. And I ran this model by my CTO, who does a lot of buying of technology for us. And I said, hey, what do you think of this $1.6 million payback? He said, sign me up. I'm in. So that's kind of an easy one. Now, again, refining the numbers and having everybody at the organization you're selling to buy into those numbers and believe them, et cetera, is kind of the big challenge. But that's the easiest way to make something a nice to have to a must have. There really has to be some quantitative data that everybody believes is true to make something a must have.
And for all the junior managers or senior reps that are listening that want to get into this enterprise sale and they're going to come interview with you, what coaching would you give them?
Ask that again. I'm sorry, my connection is getting a little wacky.
For junior managers or senior salespeople who want to kind of get into this enterprise sales space, that they're either working for a smaller company or doing smaller deals, what advice would you have for them?
You have to have nerves of steel. You know what I mean? It's like you have to. This isn't for the faint of heart, like I always say. This is it's a demanding role with lots of ups and downs, and you have to kind of steel yourself to power through a lot of the challenges that you're going to face. I mean, look, I've had numerous regular conversations with everybody, especially at the end of a sales cycle, where the advice is buckle up because we're on the roller coaster ride. We're going to have highs and then we're going to have lows, because that's just the cadence of ultimately getting a deal across the finish line. And if you're faint of heart, you're going to lose. I mean, I still lose a lot of sleep when I'm in the middle of these deals. They're challenging, and you need somebody with a good stomach, and somebody who can stay balanced, not freak out and ride the roller coaster.
Excellent. Hey, this has been a great conversation, Liz. Where do people go to connect with you and learn more about Xactly?
Absolutely. I welcome it.
I love talking to great salespeople and great sales leaders, and I really enjoyed that conversation with Lisa. What I really got out of it is this acceptance that everyone can be different but still good, breaking down what makes a rep great, being able to help them, and if they're unwilling to get help, to basically manage them as you need to. And how do you get these big deals done? Big, complicated deals with many stakeholders. It's super hard to do. I spent a lot of my career doing that. And it's very rare that you find somebody who understands how to do it and can coach people through that process, because it's complicated. It's hard to keep momentum going. People see our products as nice to haves by nature. Everybody wants to commoditize everybody else. It's our job as marketing and salespeople to differentiate and to show outcomes and values and the reasons why the product has such an enormous impact on them. So if you're struggling with compensation decisions, make sure you check out Xactly. I've heard nothing but great things about it, and I've known quite a few people who have worked there, so it seems like a really great company. They also have some funny videos on YouTube that I happen to share on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. That's it for that. Make sure you connect up with me and Lisa on LinkedIn. If you see my content on LinkedIn, I'd really appreciate a share, a like, or a comment. Follow the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast company page on LinkedIn as a way of getting updates. Make sure you subscribe and review. And also check out the show notes about the questions. You can find me at b2brevenue.com. I've got links to get onto my calendar to check out the training courses, the blog, get a free ebook about how companies buy. So I can basically outline that for you and your team right there. And check out the courses on how to start a conversation, get a meeting, and closing the complex sale if you really want to crush your number. Or maybe you're happy not going to club. It's up to you. I'm happy either way. Thanks for listening. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode. And I really would appreciate everybody who goes onto LinkedIn, connects up with me, or follows me there. If you happen to see some of my content flying by, if you could throw a little thumbs up or a comment or a share, I definitely appreciate it. It helps spread the word about the podcast. And make sure you're checking out my website, b2brevenue.com. You can get my free book on how companies make product selections. It's a real book. It is on Amazon, but I give it away for free. Just register there. It'll email you a link to it, and you can just download the PDF from there. Also, if you want to check out the courses, start the conversation, get the meeting, or closing the complex sale, and you have more questions about it, the short answer is there are video courses. You get access for a year, but it's also a community. What does that mean? You can ask questions anytime via voicemail or email. I answer them within a week, put them into the course. We have office hours every other week. It's an hour long course where you can basically, I pick a topic, answer questions, you can ask questions. Also, you can schedule one-on-ones for free, and we just talk through your particular use case, and that gets shared with the course. So if you don't have time for office hours, or the timing doesn't work, or you just want some more one-on-one help, that's all included for a whole year. So it's really a year to go from where you are to where you want to be. And so it's not just videos. It's not just knowledge. It's practice. It's getting feedback. You can send me emails. You can send me your presentation. I'll help you with anything that you need to close the complex sale or get the meeting. And you can check out them at b2brevenue.com. So that's it. I really appreciate it. And please tell somebody about the podcast and let me know if I can help you in any way. Oh, and you want to hear some results from the course? Well, here you go.
You know, I love the approach. It's working for me just fantastic. If I sent you some of the emails, which I should, the conversations that I'm having with people, I think you'd be blown away because they're not really about work. Yeah. I've figured out if you can kind of get personal with them, like one lady, it's all about her family, kids. And then I sprinkled in a little bit around work, and she's LinkedIn, sending me messages on LinkedIn, photos of her family. No, I'm not even kidding. I should show this to you. You'd be stunned. I was shocked. And we're going to lunch on September 6th. And yesterday she shot me a LinkedIn message and said, "Hey, Ron, why don't we get on the phone and do a video call beforehand so our lunch isn't so awkward? We're like barely not meeting each other for the first time." Oh, holy cow, right? Like, this is unbelievable. So this is not the first time that this has happened. She's kind of an extreme, but I'm starting to figure out a pattern where I can actually make this a process, you know? So
good. Yeah.
I'll show you that. So it's getting to that point. And every time I do this, I'm like, God, this is unbelievable, you know? So,
and it feels better too, doesn't it?
Oh, Brian, let me tell you something. To be able to go to lunch with her, I'll even talk to her on the phone, right? We're going to talk about family, kids, work-life harmony, because I shared a thing with her from Bezos about work-life harmony. This is where the conversation will start. Now, at some point, we're both not stupid, right? We know we're going to talk about work. We know why we're both there. Right. But to kick it off this way is so much better. And to end that lunch with the last 5 to 8 minutes of telling, well, what are you guys doing with digital